You know, the reason I began writing here and there is because I used to read, Merle Orleans every week. I really enjoyed the column. It was one of those things where, I'd read the front page of the Yankee, you'd see the headlines and, the big news of the day, and then the next thing was to go sort of, look at the minutia that goes on around you, and you'd look at here and there, which is usually on the back of the first section. When it got to a point where she was no longer writing for the Enquirer, I was interested in it, but it just sort of, the column lay fallow for a year or two, and I saw an ad in the paper. They were looking for somebody to write the column, and it said to submit a couple of sample columns. The first one I submitted was pretty close to what I write today, and after I sort of reflected on it, I thought, well, maybe I better write something a little closer to what Merle wrote. Maybe you could call it kinder and gentler, and I wrote that, and when Mary Ann Stanton made the decision to hire me as the columnist, she said that she preferred the first one, which is probably a little, more pointed, and not probably, it is more pointed. I do notice things. A lot of people walk through life and they kind of see this, eye level, and I think I tend to see things that are down, they're up, and I hope I see things at eye level too. Of course, as with anybody, I miss plenty of stuff along the way. That's one reason I like it when people come up to me and they tell me things. I have found over time that people do tend to open up to me and do tell me things very often.
Is he a big fisherman? Does
Likes to
talk about it a lot?
No, I'll put it this way. He's exactly what he looks like. Seems that he's not a bit different than what he seems like when you see him on TV.
My mother would slap my mouth if I didn't say Mr. or Mrs.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. And always tip your hat, she told me.
Okay.
Always.
I remember that when I'm wearing a hat anyway. I guess maybe you can say I'm a good BSer, I don't know. That campaign manager, she's hot.
The support, though, of the island people from every area.
Well, I think you've got a good wide sort of spectrum of people, and that's pretty much what people always say to me when they say, I like your column. They say, I like it because it's like you're sitting there talking to me, and that's exactly what I think it should be. I'm not looking to write something entirely dry and just perfectly factual necessarily. It has something of my personality in it, and that's why it's a column, it's not an article. It's amazing, I'm looking around here, and it's fairly well into October, and it's literally three-quarter tourists on the sidewalks. But I always have preferred the people in the fall who come here. They seem to have a little more, I don't want to say respect for the island, but they don't seem to screw up as much. Maybe that's a good way to put it. I like writing about the good things a lot more than I like writing about the bad things. A lot of people here have a problem with the fact that the town helps pay part of the cost of the Athenaeum, which is our public library. But by state law, we must have a library. Most places, the town pays the whole expense. We've got a deal here for a number of reasons, partly because it's a great library and it's a historic place. We pay a minority of what the costs are through the town, and yet people complain about having to pay for something that they otherwise would have to pay 100% of. When I first moved here back in the early 70s, a lot of very well-known people came here, but you never heard much about it. There was a little buzz on the street occasionally, but I think they came here to sort of get away from the publicity and whatever. Now it's become sort of a watering hole for the rich and famous, and I almost think sometimes they come here because it's one of those places you're supposed to be, and therefore I think when people make a big deal about it, I think they're just getting what they deserve or what they're asking for very often. Well, we're driving right up down the road right now to Washing Pond, also known as Wannacomet Pond, or very often people call it the Water Company Pond. One of the things that bothers me about this is I used to come here. It was a wonderful place. There was you couldn't see a house around it. Now it's all built up, and it's really unfortunate that the town really got taken on this one. You know, some investors bought it from the people who owned it, and next thing you knew, the town wanted the land back. They bought it back at a huge profit for the developers, and the developers got to keep a lot of these lots, which now have huge houses on them. The guys who invested their money in this had a return that must be phenomenal, because they made a profit from the town. They made a profit on the on the lots, and look at it. There's no privacy anymore. One thing that's interesting about this pond, because it is sort of a reservoir for the water company, it doesn't normally get used as such. It's in case of something like the Great Fire, which took place, back in the mid-19th century. But what they meant by deep holes is there are a number of places around the pond where there are wells sunk into it. When you're wading, it's very possible to step into one.
Are we getting water from this?
No. This is basically here in case there was a huge fire and the water pressure was lowered. This tower has enough, because it's up high, the water comes out under a huge amount of pressure, and they would need that in case of a major fire.